Hello, guys, welcome back to another episode here on African Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it comes from a narration of an interview that our team did when they were doing a walkabout in this other village. Then they reached this other woman, they reached out to her. She then gave them this confession, and she is also looking for any kind of help. And she was saying that sometimes she feels so guilty that she wants to end her own life because of the things that she did. The story reads like this. Hello, my brother, how are you? Can you please post my story as hidden identity? My brother, I am a woman who is aged 30 and I come from Zim. So my story, my brother, it goes on like this. I was once married, and when I had gotten married, I was the third wife. And just before I had gotten married, I can say that I was someone who didn't even care about men when I was still in high school, because I fell pregnant for my husband when I was still in high school. But it happened that at the time when my husband took me in as his third wife, it was like there was this evil spirit that had gone and awakened one of my ancestors who was like a prostitute. Then a spirit came and rested on my body, because I was like a dog now that didn't even choose. Like a dog can even sleep with its own child. That is what I was doing at that time. When I started staying with my husband, he was older than I was, and I had loved him when he had proposed love to me. But things started to change. The first thing that I noticed was that I didn't like his body like the way that I used to like it. He is a man whom I can say that he is not that slender. He was in between, but he was really handsome. But I then started to have this obsession whereby whenever I would see a man with a belly, like a big belly and a big body, I'll just feel something in my body, like I just want to be with that man. In the beginning of this issue, I tried to control myself, but it was just too much, so much that if I would come across a man with a big pot belly, I would even try to speak with that man, but at the end of the day, I would stop myself, because in our culture, it is like a taboo for a woman to seduce a man. So in the village, there was this other man who had that kind of a body that I was lusting after. I then started to teach my mind, because I was no longer enjoying like making love to my husband because of this obsession of wanting to be with a man with a big pot belly. I would imagine whenever my husband would be on top of me, I would imagine that my husband had that big body that I wanted him to have. And with time, my brother, the desire even became more, such that when my husband was supposed to come to my bedroom, because we had duties, the way that we would do it, if you will be on your periods, your husband would not visit you into your sleeping quarters. You will be with one of his wives. Then sometimes what we would do is that for a week he would be staying with you, then you would go and stay with the other wives. That is the way that we used to share our husband. And I started struggling, because when my husband would not be at home, I would continue to lust after men that I would have seen. And at that time, I didn't have a phone, so I'll just put those men in my imagination. Then I'll just feel that, I have produced, because of the way that I'll be pressing my legs. It then happened that the man who had a very big body, the one that I was lusting after, started to speak with me in a very friendly way. He invited me to their church. He was going to a white garments church. So at the home where I had been married into, they were traditional people, but they allowed us to go to church. But the church mainly that they wanted us to go to, it was like your Methodist church and the Roman Catholic. So I then said that I do not want to go to that church anymore. I just want to go to that church which that man that I was lusting after his body had invited me to. I then started going to that church, and then that man, because in that church, if you are going to the white garment church, you need to have those white garments. So he asked me why I was not bringing those white garments to church. And I told him that I had asked my husband for the money, but my husband had refused to give me the money because he was complaining. Already he had bought some brand new uniforms for us, which were Methodist church uniforms. So he was saying that I can't buy you those ones because I don't have any money at all. So that man then said that I am going to surprise you one day. I didn't know what type of a surprise it was going to be. So one day when I was returning from my vegetable garden, just when I was about to cross this other river, that was when I met him. He was holding a plastic. He then said that I passed through your homestead and I could not see you, and I didn't want to risk it, like to get into the compound, because it was going to be suspicious. So I knew that I would find you here by your vegetable garden. And I asked him why he was looking for me. He then gave me that plastic bag and he said, here, you can have them. This is the way that a proper woman who attends our church is supposed to wear. So I took that plastic and I was really happy. Now I was really nervous because I didn't know what I was going to tell my husband, because our husband, he didn't give us any money or anything. If you wanted to buy anything, he would go and buy it for you. So that man then said that if that is the case, all that you have to do, just tell your husband that you are now selling vegetables, and after a little while you are going to tell him that you have managed to raise up some money and you have bought this garment that I had bought for you. He then took it and he said that he was going to return it back to me after a couple of weeks. I then started telling my husband that I had been thinking of a small business whereby I'll be selling some vegetables. My husband was not even interested in it. He then said, okay, do the thing that is going to please you. I then started pretending as if I would be selling some vegetables to other people. And whenever you would ask me, did you sell anything today? I'll just say, yes, I sold something, but this money, I don't want you to see it because you are going to ask for it. I am hiding it somewhere. My husband, funny enough, he believed me. And anyway, he was not that man whereby he would want to concentrate on everything that would be happening in his homestead, since he had a lot of children and he had three wives, so he was always busy. So after a couple of weeks, that was when I planned with that prophet, and I told him that it was time for him to give me that garment that he had bought for me. He gave me that garment and I pretended as if I had gone to town so that I can buy. And when I returned back home, I showed it to my husband and he was really happy because I had bought some tobacco for him to smoke. He was really happy about it. And I then started attending that church, and at the same time, I was now able to live that fantasy whereby I had a boyfriend who had that pot belly. What I would do is that each and every time when I would feel like I am tired of sleeping with my husband, I would make sure that when I know that he is not coming into my sleeping quarters, that man would sneak into my bedroom, because my husband, I'll just tell him that I think that tonight I'll be on my periods. Then I will know that he would not visit me in my sleeping quarters. Then I will tell that man that I was dating that he's supposed to come. We dated for a very long time until one day, since now I had a phone, he called me and he said that he was in the mountain. So in that mountain, that is where we used to go and collect the firewood for cooking. In the village, we didn't have any electricity. And when I was about to go there, I then saw that one of my husband's wife, like the second wife, the one that didn't like me, she was looking at me somehow. But I just said, no, I am going, because I was missing that man, because he had recently traveled somewhere and he had spent a lot of time without having to come to see me. So I was missing him really bad. And at that time, I was using my body to think and not using my mind. So that second wife to my husband, she started following me as I was going up the mountain until I had reached this other place where me and my boyfriend used to meet each other. And I then took one of my wrapping skirt and I just laid it on a rock. Then me and him, we started making love. And that second wife to my husband, she saw everything and she then returned back home. She waited for me to come. And the mistake that she did is that she wanted to keep it as a secret because, you know, when you are in a polygamous marriage, you are always trying to find like a scandal that your other sister wife would have done so that you can control her. So she thought that now she had finally gotten something that was going to make me walk out of this marriage, since she didn't like me, because she thought that she was going to become the last wife to our husband. But later on, my husband then chose me to become the last wife. So there was a little bit of jealousy that was going on between her and me. I then spoke with her and I started crying, but you know, those were just crocodile tears. I was not even scared. I didn't even love my husband anymore. I was just using the love, you know, that feeling of lusting after someone. That is the type of mind that I had at that time. So I then lied to her that I was never going to date this man again if she was willing to forgive me. She then started taking advantage of me because she knew one of my secrets. With time, I really grew tired, and that man that I was dating, he had gone somewhere and he had received some powers for him to prophesy, because he was now in the business of going around a lot of villages and trying to strengthen people's homes. And after strengthening people's homes using that magic that he had been given, then the people would give him cattle or goats, even chickens. He would even claim that he was going to give me a cow, but before he had given me that cow, that was when we planned such an evil thing that we ended up planning. I then said that my sister wife, she knows our secret and she is the only one that can expose us. Then he said that he was going to have it sorted out, but he said that there was something that he was going to ask from me. All that I was supposed to do was to convince this sister wife of mine to come to his place, as if we will be coming to receive some prayers. All that he wanted was the soil where she would have stepped on, not wearing any shoes at all, and he was going to use that soil. So I kept on being friendly to my sister wife, even though I knew that she hated me a lot. At that time, she had a small baby. So I then told her that for this baby not to have any sicknesses, we needed to have this baby to go and receive some prayers. And I just knew the correct prophet that was going to give her baby the prayers. We then went after I had convinced her. When we arrived at my boyfriend's homestead, no one knew that I was in love with him. It was only me and him. We knew the deal that we were about to perform, and we removed the shoes. This is what they do in that church. You cannot pray with your shoes on. After we had removed the shoes, that was when he started praying for me and my sister wife as well as the baby. So he had just placed a mark at the spot where he had seen that my sister wife, she had been kneeling. After he had prayed for us, it was just a fake prayer anyway. We then returned back home. He then called me late at night and he told me that everything was done. He was going to travel out of the village so that the soil that he had picked up was going to be used. He traveled. I don't know where he went with that soil, but I suspect that he went to this other traditional healer, the one that used to assist him. He was a Malawian guy who came here to Zim a long time ago and never returned back to his country. That was like one of his personal traditional healers. And after they did these charms, that was when my sister wife started to get really sick. But the way that she was getting sick, it was like her legs, inside her leg there was a creature that was living there, because you could see that her leg, it was rotting, and you could even see some worms, very small white worms that were always coming out of her right leg until she passed away. She died when her child was 1 year 2 months. So at her funeral, that was when my boyfriend called me and he said that we had done a mistake because she was not supposed to die. So there was water that was needed. This water that was used at that funeral, we needed to take it. And after taking it, him and I, we were supposed to go to her grave so that we can sprinkle that water on her grave so that her body will never rise up again. Because when he was seated with other men, like at a funeral, usually in the village, men will be sitting around the fire just having a discussion. So my sister's wife's relatives, they had traveled from their village so that they can attend the funeral of their relative, because they said that they wanted to know what exactly caused their relative to die. So when he heard people saying that they wanted to place some charms on her grave so that her spirit can wake up in the event that someone had caused her death, that was when he texted me and he told me that I needed to be very clever. And at that time, her body was still in the mortuary. When her body came, so there is the water that is placed at the front of the gate. Usually, when you are about to go and bury your loved one, there is a dish or there is a bucket of water that is placed at the gate of the compound so that when people return from the grave, they can wash their hands. That is the water that my boyfriend had been told by the traditional healer to bring so that it can be sorted, and we would go and sprinkle it on my sister's wife's grave. But on that day, I think that a spirit was already fighting against me, because I said that I do not want to go with the others to go and bury her. I wanted to remain with some of my husband's relatives that were busy tending the food and cooking the food, because we want people were supposed to eat when they would be returning from their graves. So I tried by all means to get close to that area where we had placed a dish and a bucket that was full of water that everyone was going to use to wash their hands when they would be returning from the village. But I could not get any opportunity, because each and every time when I would try to move away from the other women that were there was someone who would always follow me behind. Sometimes I would even lie that I want to go and buy airtime at the shop. Then there was always someone that would follow me. So I then saw that if I tried to do something, people were going to suspect. And I just texted that boyfriend of mine and I told him that I had failed to get that water. And he said that if you cannot get that water, it is going to be trouble for you and me. I said, is there no way for us to resolve this thing, because you are very powerful? At that time, word was going around that he was a powerful prophet who even knew how to catch those goblins. I said, can't you use your powers to fight against their spirit? He then said, if you have anything to offer. I said, of course, I have something to offer. I do not want a spirit to give me any trouble. We then spoke after the burial when everyone had departed. We met at our certain spot in the forest. As we were sitting down, that was when he said that you have to do something about it. Otherwise, this ghost is going to make you crazy, or you're going to lose all of your children because of this thing that we did. He then said that you know that after 2 weeks, the body of your sister wife, it is going to fill up the coffin, and after filling up the coffin, it will sort of like explode. He said that after 2 weeks, when her body had exploded, then there was nothing that we could do about it. He said that so we had to rush in all the things that we were doing. We had to treat it as an emergency. I said, so what are we supposed to do? He said, I will go with you. There was this other woman who was also a traditional healer, but she was that type who throws bones on the floor and tell you your future. That is where we went. When we went to that woman, she then said the only thing that could be done was to offer something to that woman's spirit. I said, something like what? She said, it doesn't mean that someone has to die. How about your father goes blind? And she just said it without blinking, like it was something normal. Like, how about your father goes blind? Said, I cannot make my father go blind. Then she got angry and she said, so you have not suffered. Get out of my consulting room. Get out, because there are some people that are waiting for me. I then saw that this was the only way, because I didn't want to suffer. If your spirit was going to raise up, then I was going to suffer. So I said, how am I going to make my father go blind? Then that traditional healer gave me some herbs, and she said that these herbs that I have given you, when you return back home, I want you to travel back to your people. And whilst you are there, I want you to prepare some water for your father so that he can bath. And after you've prepared that water for him, I want you to place these charms. Then that woman gave me the charms. I picked those charms and we returned back to the village. I then stayed just a little while and I told my husband that I just wanted to visit my people. He allowed me. I then returned back to my people. My mom was really happy and my father as well. So I started to do all the chores at our house, and I lied to my mom and I told her that I missed being a child again, and they were really happy. And one day, that was when my father was coming from the fields and he was really tired, and I said, for you to sit down, I am not going to allow you. I want you to bath first before you sit down, and after you have sat down, I am going to prepare a good meal for you. So already I had prepared some bathing water for my father. I then placed those charms inside that bathing water. No one ever suspected that a daughter can do something like that to her own father. When I had returned back to my husband, my father, he then started to go colorblind. He didn't go blind like in a single day. Slowly but surely, he was losing his eyesight until completely my father could not see. So after my father had gone blind, I don't know if it was the stress or what, but my father then got so sick, and when he was admitted into the hospital, that was when he lost his life. When my father lost his life, I remained staying with my husband until he passed away. And when he passed away, I just moved out of that compound because there was a lot of things that were happening. That was when I came into this village where I am currently staying. The man who brought me into this village where you have found me, he also has since died. You see, that is his grave right there. Dear listeners, right there was a narration of an interview that our team did whilst they were out and about in the field when they had gone to visit this other family. And in that family, there is a brother who sacrificed his sister's daughters so that they cannot get married simply because he wanted to do those blood money making rituals. That family is suffering. They have not yet managed to get any kind of assistance. Each and every day, I pray that God is going to raise someone that will be willing to assist that family. Strange things do happen in this world.